Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good, good, good. I'm just gonna switch over to my earphones. I'm not sure why that's not working.
Okay, cool. I see Emma, I see Supriya in the room as well. If you can, ladies, turn your cameras on so you can see your beautiful faces. But that's fine if you can't, as long as you're listening in. So, the topic of today, hi, Supriya. You're back to lifting. How does it feel?
It feels great. I'm about to I'm almost at my upper body workout today. So I'm like, oh, let me get on and finish my last set while I'm on this call.
That's amazing. I was actually just looking at your pictures the other day, like as you started your fat loss phase. I know
Yeah.
I was looking at like your glutes and how you've developed this past building phase. I'm like, wow, that's really impressive. So,
Thanks, coach. I really appreciate it.
way to go, way to go. Awesome, awesome. You're finishing your workout there. Jessica is in the room as well. Welcome, welcome. So, tonight is the topic that I talked about extensively a couple of weeks ago, but did not record, which was training intensity and basically how to apply progressive overload, how to get the most out of your workouts, because that's really what's going to change your physique over time is knowing how to put in the right effort, the right intensity, how to progress. You could give the same set of workouts to an advanced person and a beginner. And the beginner might look at the list of exercises and how the workout is written and might feel like, oh, this is easy. But the advanced person will know how to make the most out of that workout. And things like exercise selection, things like how to actually implement proper technique, proper form. Those are things that we develop over time as we get more and more advanced. And it takes time. It takes time. The beauty of it is that you can never learn too much. And I wanted to say this in the beginning because, I know that there are ladies here that have been in the program for over a year, for example, Supriya, and she's a student of the process. She's always implementing, asking for feedback, asking for help. She's also always trying to learn and do better. And that's and that's what differentiates somebody who gets results and somebody who doesn't. There's never going to be a point in time where, oh, I already know this. I already know too much. I already know how to do this. I don't need it. I don't need to learn anymore about this. That's not true. Don't get cocky. I myself still submit my training videos to my coach on a weekly basis, and I still get feedback. I still ask for feedback, and I still have things to work on. So, and I've been doing this for, I don't know, almost 2 decades. It's a long time. So you're never going to reach a point where you know everything. So that's important for you to keep in mind. Um,
Totally, totally. I
yeah,
feel
right.
like even like, professional athletes have coaches, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And they're always refining their skills, refining their ability to implement the plan. Because that's the thing.
Mm.
As you get more advanced, it doesn't mean that you're going to get more advanced methods necessarily. It just means that you get better at the basic stuff. So being advanced doesn't mean that you get to do more advanced stuff. It means that, or more complicated stuff, it means that you're better at the basics. So
Mm.
again, I've been training for 18 years, 17, 18 years. And I don't think I'll ever stop doing the basics. The squats, the deadlifts, the presses, the rows, the pull-ups, all of the things in each variation and how it's programmed, it might change. But those are the basics that we're always gonna be doing, right? And that's what differentiates somebody who keeps on advancing. So the ability to get better at the basics instead of skipping the basics and thinking that they just need something more complex. That's very rarely the case. Okay. So no
Totally.
fancy stuff,
Yeah.
just getting better on the basic stuff, on the boring work, on the things that are not super exciting to work on. But those are the things that are going to get you the results you're looking for. Okay. Anything else you wanted to add on this, Mia? Or
Yeah, I just wanted to say that resistance training or weight training, it's more than just lifting a weight from point A to point B. It's how you lift it.
Mhm.
And I would classify a beginner, intermediate, advanced lifter on how well they actually move the weight, not necessarily how much weight they're lifting.
correct. Yes.
Mm,
Yes. Challenge yourself to have your weights, because I
mm,
do think that a lot of ladies are underestimating their ability to their strength. But it's not just about that. This is not a powerlifting program or a weightlifting competition, right?
mm,
If you want to really transform your physique, build muscle, sculpt muscles, there's a skill to it. There's, the how matters, not just the what, right?
mhm.
So much so that there's free programs and free workouts and cheap workouts out there. Like you can find on YouTube, you can find $29.99 subscriptions that you can pay to get a program for you on an app that everybody else does. But people don't get results from it. Why? Because it's not about the what, it's about the how you execute it and the skill that it gets to develop. And as with any skill, you don't get confident, you don't feel confident at it at first because you're not good at it at first, because it takes time. So, for example, starting a new job. So if you are more advanced in your career, for example, if you are at a senior position now, you might not remember, but try to remember how it felt like when you were starting out in your role in your new company, for example. It took you some time to learn the ropes and to navigate how to execute the tasks efficiently and how to do certain things. In the beginning, you probably didn't feel super confident in your role. But over time, as you kept practicing it and learning about it and implementing it and taking action, you became more confident because you became more competent. And it's the same thing with the skill of lifting properly to see results. You might not feel super confident in the beginning because you're not competent. You haven't been practicing it enough. You might have been working out and lifting for a little bit, for a while, for years maybe, but implementing the right things in the right order, you might not be as experienced. You might not be there yet. So it takes time to practice and repeat and make mistakes until you become competent enough to feel confident in what you do. Okay. And there's no timeline. There's no like, oh, in 1 year, you'll be advanced and you'll be fine. It's different for everybody. It's different for everybody. Okay. So, just jumping into the topic on what exactly is progressive overload and why it's important. So progressive overload is the gradual increase on the stress placed on your body during an exercise. Okay. So basically we want to be able to do more, apply more tension to the muscle over time. And there are many ways in which you can do that. It's not just increasing more weight. Yes, that's the easiest way to do it. That's the easiest and more measurable way to do it. But if you keep on adding weight and adding weight and adding weight, you're going to reach a cap. And you might not be paying attention to other forms of progressive overload that are just as important. For you to add more weight over time and get really stronger, you need to have some foundational pieces in place, which are, for example, form, technique. Those are, if you don't do anything different, but from week to week, you are improving your range of motion, improving your form, improving your technique, improving how well you execute a movement, you are applying progressive overload. Okay. If you are adding more reps to the same weight and bringing that muscle to the point near failure, you are applying progressive overload. So doing more over time can look a little different, but that's important. What's important is that we're doing more over time, applying more tension over time, because if you're lifting the same weight for the same amount of reps, for the same amount of sets, week in and week out, nothing's going to change. You're going to feel like you're working super hard every day, you're showing up, but nothing's going to change because there's no reason to. We only change, the body only changes if there's a reason to. So muscle will adapt if there's a reason for muscles to adapt. So we go into the gym, we lift the weight. What we do, we break down muscle fibers, right? In a very simplistic way, we break down muscle fibers. If we apply the right intensity, if we apply the proper tension, right? And then we go home, we rest, we recover, we eat well, and then those muscle fibers, they rebuild stronger. Because then the next time you go into the gym, they are able to handle that same stress that you placed on that day. Then if you go to the gym and you apply more tension, then they break down again and they have to rebuild stronger and stronger. In a very simplistic way, this is how it's built. But then if you go into the gym and you're always applying the same intensity and you're never moving forward, you're never progressing, there's no reason for the muscles to adapt. That's all they can handle. They're used to that. There's no reason to become stronger. So there's got to be that progression. There's got to be more over time for to give that reason for the muscles to adapt. Does that make sense? And I forgot to mention, if you guys have any questions while presenting, just drop it in the chat and I'll handle them later on. But because I don't want it to be too like me talking. So if you have any questions, if there's anything that you want to ask, feel free. Okay. And then I think it's, like I said, there are many forms of progressive overload that we can go through: increasing weight, increasing load, increasing repetitions with the same load, increasing volume, which is the total amount of work that you do on a weekly basis for a specific muscle group, decrease rest time, increase training frequency, so on and so forth. There are many ways that we can do that. In the program, we're always looking for the intensity that you're applying over time, your form, your technique, how you're executing it, and if you're bringing if you're bringing your sets near failure, and if you're able to, how we can see that inside the program, inside your training logs. It's actually, one of the things that we look at is how you're logging your training sessions, how you're logging your sets. If a specific exercise asks for 3 sets out of 10, and you do the exact same weight for exactly 10 reps for all the 3 sets, you're probably not training hard enough. You're probably not applying the intensity that you need to be applying, because fatigue accumulates across the sets. So your last set, you might not be able to do 10. You might feel shy there. You might stop at 8 or 9, whatever the case may be. But if your sets look exactly the same, you're probably leaving gains in the tank. You're probably not quite there yet. That's one of the things. And then obviously we look week over week. Are you doing more? Are you increasing your weights? Are you increasing maybe your reps with the same weight so you're able to squeeze in more? We're looking at your training videos. Are you bringing on the intensity that you need to bring? If all of your reps looks exactly the same, your rep 1 looks exactly like rep 10, you're probably not putting in enough intensity, okay? You're probably leaving reps in the tank way more than you think. Because as fatigue accumulates through the sets, your last few reps should feel really slow. Like when we look at it on the video, we can see that you're slowing down. We can see that you're struggling. We can see that there's no Botox that can handle your face because you're really struggling. And it looks hard. We can tell that it's hard, right? Now, if all of your sets look exactly the same, all of your reps look exactly the same, you're not putting in enough intensity. And how to bring that intensity up? That's a very specific case, looking at a specific videos, but if you put on more weight, if you slow down your reps, to slow down your tempo and make sure that you're really engaging the muscles and connecting that mind muscle connection, and make sure that you're not just going through the motions and thinking about a laundry list of things that you need to do. So really connecting and being present on what you're doing, slowing the fuck down. That really helps to, you know, get the most out of your sets. Anything else that you'd like to add, Mia?
Yeah, just going back to your point on accumulative fatigue through the sets that you're doing. So if you have 3 sets, if you're working close to muscular or technical failure for your first set, you will find that you won't be able to match the same amount of reps in your first set to your second set, and from your second set to your third set. So there will be a natural drop off of reps as the sets progress.
Yes.
So if you can do, as Andrea said, you know, 3 sets of 10 at 16 kilos, I'm not sure what that is in pounds, then you're not working close to muscular, anywhere near close to muscular or technical failure. Your reps should be dropping off set to set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at my training log, too bad that I didn't set aside a screenshot to show you guys. But if you look at my training logs, it never happens that all of my sets are exactly the same. Never. If the exercise asks for 3 sets of 8 to 12, it's going to drop off as I get closer to the last set, for sure. No matter how much I rest, like the fatigue is there, and it's going to drop off. I might do 11 on the first set, then on the second set it drops down to maybe 9, and then on the last one it'll be down to 8 or even 7, and it's like really a struggle to get there. So it's never going to be like exactly the same. And I know this because I know how to apply that intensity on my sessions, right? So I know what I'm looking for. I know the feeling that I'm looking for. I'm going past the point of feeling the burn. I'm going past the point where it's uncomfortable. I'm leaning in that uncomfortable feeling, right? I'm going past the point where it's slowed down, and I'm going past the point where my mind would have given up. Your mind will always give up first before then your body. Always. And your mind is very powerful. So if you say, I can't do anymore, your body will literally stop right there. Right? But if you tell yourself, okay, one more, I got this. One more, I got this. You can squeeze in one more. Or even if you can't, at least you reach that point where you're near muscular failure, true muscular failure, where it really brings in the changes and adaptations that we need, that we're looking for. Okay. Just wanted to mention one thing here, Jessica, because I know you're pregnant. Take this with a grain of salt, okay? Please take this with a grain of salt, because during pregnancy, we want to leave more reps in the tank intentionally, okay? Because you're going to get to that point of fatigue sooner, and it will feel different. So for pregnancy, that's different, okay? Take this with a grain of salt. Apply all of this when you're back postpartum, but it definitely looks different.
A lot sooner than I normally do. Yeah, you're right.
Yes, and that's normal, okay? That's normal. So don't attempt to push yourself to your limits during this phase specifically, okay?
One more asterisk, sorry, just to put on that.
Go ahead.
If you're performing an exercise which is a bit more skill heavy, like a deadlift or a squat, you probably want to leave 1 to 2 reps in the tank, given that you don't want to go to true muscular failure, because your back is probably going to start looking like a croissant. So you want to just go to technical failure there. So you want to be able to execute. You want almost all the reps there to actually look the same. You know, they'll probably be slowed down a little bit on the last rep or 2, but you don't want your technique to break down completely on the last rep. So just, a caveat there. Yes, that's a good point. That's a really good point. For barbell movements, I feel like barbell movements specifically, that's when that rule would apply, and that would look different. We definitely don't want to be going to absolute failure on a barbell bench press, right?
And that's when a good programming comes in hand to hand as well. And something that I've been learning more throughout the years is that sometimes having more, because what happens is on squats that lifts, bench presses and movements that are compound movements that are going to be utilizing multiple different muscular groups. What happens is you're never quite sure what will bring that failure point. If it is the stability, if it is, your erectors, what exactly happened for that exercise to break down, right? And when it comes to hypertrophy training, which is what we're aiming for here, that will bring that muscle growth over time. We want the muscle target, the targeted muscle, we want that to be the failure point. So, for example, on a Smith machine squat, for example, you can more safely bring that muscle, or on a hack squat, for example, hack squat, leg press, more stable movements, stable variations of the same movement pattern. You can bring that closer to muscular failure because the primary muscles that we're targeting are going to be what will bring that failure point, and not necessarily stability or technique breakdown and things like that. So obviously there's a time and place for everything, but just keeping in mind as well that sometimes it makes sense to program more stable movements that are the same movement pattern that other movements that might not be ideal for that specific goal that we have. Make sense?
Yeah, and just to underline what you said, Andrea, so exercises that where you're in a more externally supported position, like using a machine, you can go very safely to failure.
Yes.
Because you're up against the bench, it doesn't require bracing or a lot of internal stability. So you can go very close to failure. You can go to failure.
The more stable, the safer it is to go to failure. And the smaller the muscles as well. So it's pretty safe to go to failure on a bicep curl. Because it's just a small muscle group, right? So yeah, that makes sense. Supriya is asking, does that apply to barbell hip thrusts as well? I would say, you mean if that applies the same rule for barbell back squat and deadlifts? I want to say that no, it's a bit different with the barbell hip thrust. What do you think, Mia?
Well, you just want to go to the point where you want to be able to maintain or reach hip extension whilst maintaining your bracing.
Yeah.
So if I would say you could probably go to the point where your technique starts to break down, because at some point you're not going to be able to brace and get that posterior pelvic tilt. Yeah. And reach hip extension. It is a safer position to be in for sure.
That's what I was going to say.
It's definitely safer position.
Because what is it going to happen if you can't hip thrust? If you can't keep on hip thrusting, right? You're just going to stop right there. It's one of the safest, but it's one of the easiest for technique to break down when you don't even notice that the technique broke down. And then you're not fully like utilizing what you really want out of this movement, which are glutes.
I kind of feel like that one sits a little bit.
Makes sense. So I feel that it's safer, definitely safer for you to fail on a hip thrust. But I think that before you're really going to failure, you really need to make sure that you are locking in at the top and really maximizing hip extension there throughout all the reps, which is really hard to do because sometimes it starts to break down and you don't even notice. Right. And that's one that I also like to sometimes use the Smith machine for it, because then you're not trying to balance the barbell and you have a little bit more stability, a little bit more control, and you can really focus on that glute engagement and bringing that hip extension at the top. Sometimes I find that can be easier and safer as well.
Yeah, I'm going to try that, Coach, me and Andrea, because like, for example, barbell hip thrusts, like when I was bulking, I could do, you know, I could push myself to do 12 reps at like 285 or 290, right?
Mhm.
If I really push myself. And then if I wanted to reach at 295, it was so hard to even get 2 reps up. It was like that husk. So, but I could complete 12 at 90 or 285 or 290, right? But I just couldn't go up to that. It was at that like one
That's
point where I
fine.
couldn't get up to 95. So I'm like, okay, am I truly going to failure because I've done 12, at 290? So it's always like that. I was always a little confused by it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it does make sense. I feel like, so I wouldn't try to look at the failure point as like how many reps I'm doing necessarily, but how those reps look like. So are you able to do 12 reps with full hip extension, like bringing it to like across all 12 reps?
Got it. Okay.
Are you
Got it. Yeah.
getting to those last few reps? Is it slowing down? Is it getting harder for you to keep that tension up? Or you start to rush through it and your reps look actually faster as you go through it because you just want to keep on going and keep on pumping, because that can happen. Oh, it's getting harder. It's just a matter of keep on hip thrusting and you're just using momentum without even realizing that you're using momentum.
Got
Right.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely would say I was slowing down as I got to like the 9 or 10 mark. So
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes there are those movements that are going to be hard. Like you hit a sticking point and it seems like it's forever for you to be able to progress from there. And I feel like it's pretty normal too. Right, Mia?
Yeah, I think as you become more of an intermediate lifter, the increments that you actually increase in terms of load get smaller and smaller, and the progressions
Yeah.
you make get smaller and smaller as well.
Yeah.
And you really have to fight to make those progressions. Like
Oh,
there's
yeah.
some weeks where exercises I don't even progress, and then the week after I progress like a kilo, maybe
Yep.
half a kilo, especially on those big lifts, and that's very normal. It's very normal.
Very normal.
And then
Very
you have to find different ways of progressing, like what you were saying, Andrea, at the start of this call. Can we modify tempo? Can we add pause reps? Can we, add more volume? You have to kind of be a bit more inventive in terms of the way that you progress, aside
Yeah.
from load.
Yeah, exactly. Because it does take longer. You hit a point where it does take longer for you to make progress. And even for those who are not quite there yet in terms of being an advanced lifter, it's important to say that when we say progress, it's just like with the scale weights. It might not be as linear as you think as well. So it's quite normal,
Totally.
right? So when we're looking at progression, we're not just like, okay, every single week there's gotta be progression. It's linear. It's not gonna be quite that. There are going to be weeks where you feel a little weaker, where you didn't progress compared to the previous week, but you've maintained. And then next week you go back and keep on progressing again. Or progress just looked different this week. There is that component as well. Strength or progression doesn't necessarily mean that things are in a linear fashion every single week without fail. There are weeks that are going to be looking different and feeling different. But the mentality that you have to go into your training sessions is the mentality of doing better than you did last week, always. Otherwise, your body's not going to have a reason to change. And I think that this is even more important to emphasize for the ladies who are not super overweight, who are more on the skinny fat side, who maybe have, 5-10 pounds to lose, quote unquote, and are looking for that body recomposition and changing the shape of their physique. Training becomes even more important because that's what's going to give the reason, the initial signal, the initial stimulus for your body to build muscle. Obviously, we have to go into your nutrition, your recovery, make sure that all of that is aligned. But if the initial stimulus is not there, you can have the best diet in the world, you can be super on point with your recovery, but the initial stimulus is not there, nothing's going to happen. You're not building muscle because you're lifting the same 10-pound weight every single week. Right. And I think that this is really important to say. And another point that I wanted to make on this topic is train as if you wanted to get bulky, because that's how you got lean. And that's a really hard concept for a lot of women to understand and, really wrap their minds around. Because it's not because you're getting stronger, it's not because you're intentionally building muscle that you're going to look bulky. There's no way that you're going to look bulky if you have the right nutrition strategies in place. Bulky, or that bodybuilding look, first of all, that the amount of effort and consistency and other things that it takes is not something that you accidentally get to. Okay, absolutely not. Now, there are other versions of bulkiness where you feel like you're bigger and your clothes are tighter and you don't see that muscle definition. And we've had clients coming to us where they started training with an in-person trainer, focusing on getting stronger, but their diets were not aligned, or they didn't work with a phasic approach in terms of going through different phases in their transformation. So they were feeling that they were getting stronger, but they were also getting bulky. They were also like, they didn't see the body changing. And this is not because they were getting stronger. It is because the nutrition side of things were never addressed. It was never periodized in the right way. So let go of the fear. If there's anyone listening to this that still have that deep down fear of getting bulky, of maybe I'll be too strong and too big and too bulky, you will not. If you want to look lean, toned, defined, have a feminine shape, train as if you wanted to get bulky. Train with the most amount of intensity that you can. I myself is a good example of that, because I spent years fearing upper body lifting properly. Like, I feared that, because I've always been self-conscious about my shoulders and my arms, because I've always been like a little bit larger on here, but I never had that definition. So I thought to myself, if I put in the intensity on upper body, then obviously I'm going to get bigger, and I don't want my arms to get bigger. So I avoided that for so many years. And then it wasn't until I started to actually think like, okay, I don't give a crap. I'm just going to start, getting really strong on this and see what it will take me. And that's when I finally started to see results, and I got the arm definition that I wanted, the shoulder definition that I wanted. And that completely changed the game for me. So put in the intensity, especially on the areas that you feel like, oh, I don't want to grow there. I know you don't want to grow there, but if you want to lean out there, you need to have more muscle mass, because that's what's going to give you the look you're searching for.
Totally.
Makes sense. Anything else to add, Mia?
Yes, just underline, highlight that. I think a lot of people don't understand how hard it is, especially for women to build muscle. It is so freaking hard. Even if you're training at a really high intensity and all your boxes are ticked with recovery, nutrition, training steps, blah, 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 it is so hard to build muscle, and it is a really long-term lofty goal.
Yeah.
So, going in and half-assing your sessions and not going to failure, you're just not going to get the result you want, and
You're not even going to get near that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it is really imperative that you're training with intensity, because muscle is a really lean, dense tissue. It's far denser than fat tissue. So you're not likely to get bulky, because muscle is very, very dense, very dense, flat tissue. And, when you look at bodybuilders and, a lot of physique athletes, a lot of them are taking anabolics and stuff to get that really bulked look. Whereas like if you're training like myself and Andrea, and you're training with intensity and you're accruing muscle mass, and it is at a very normal, like physiological level, you're not going to get super bulky.
Because one thing that's hard for women to understand is that it's not just because you started lifting weights that you're going to build muscle. It's not a guarantee. You can do all the things and you can still not build muscle because one, we each have individual genetic potential in us, right? As females, we have less testosterone than men to begin with. So we already have a disadvantage there. And second, it's different than fat loss. Fat loss is pretty straightforward. There's an excess tissue there, an excess fat hanging around. So if you're eating less, if you're moving more, if you're doing like ticking a few boxes here and there over time, you're going to decrease that fat mass that's in excess, right? Your body's going to get rid of that. But building something new, building a new muscle tissue is really hard work for your body. So the stimulus need to be there. The right movements for what you want need to be there as well. The right programming, the right intensity, the recovery piece, the hormones, the nutrition, the hydration, all of the things. And that's not even a guarantee that you're going to build at the rate that you expect to build. So that's very unconscious to think that, oh, I'm going to look bulky. I'm going to get bulky. I don't want to get big. You will not get big. Even if you wanted to get big, you will not, you'll not get there. I've been working on building my glutes for quite some time and it's hard. Okay. It's not easy. So especially as you fine tune the areas that you want to improve on, if you want to get that lean, tone, defined physique you want, build muscle and work on your upper body, your back. That's gonna, just give you more of that X frame that you're looking for, which gives that illusion of a smaller waist. So in general, like you're literally sculpting the physique you want through muscle building. But that starts with you going into each training session with the intention to do that, with like the mindset of I'm going to do better than I did last week, with looking at your notes from the previous sessions and improving upon it, with filming your sessions and sending it to your coach so we can review it and give you feedback. And you can actually apply the feedback, not just, listening here and forgetting on the next session. Because that's what's going to be the game changer. All the ladies that had a successful transformation through the program, they really internalized that concept and took their training sessions really seriously.
Yeah, 100%. I think the clients that I've had, which really take their training seriously and are quite detail orientated and really push the intensity of their workouts, see the most success in the program, 100% all of the time.
Yeah. 100%. All right. And I think that's it. Before we wrap up, I wanted to see if anybody has any questions. But even before that, there is a resource in one of the groups in the app. In the group workout resource, there's a PDF called Bikini Body Workout Guide. It needs a little update because it's been 2 years, but it does have a step-by-step guide on how to apply effort, how to use the RPE scale, how to use the RIR, which is repetitions in reserve. So at least you can conceptualize what we're talking about and implement it in your training sessions. So I would look for that resource. If you can't find it, let us know. But all the tips for you to implement all of this in your training session, the way that your training is programmed, because it is programmed differently for each one of you. So there are pointers on how to specifically do that inside of that resource. Okay. Other than that, any questions, anything that you wanted to ask about what we talked about here, about workout training in general? Or are we good?
This is super helpful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. That's awesome. Glad to have you here. Anybody have a question? If not, we'll wrap up. All right. We're good. We're good. Awesome. I hope that this was helpful. And let us know if you have any questions, any insights, anything. Drop it in the WhatsApp group so the other ladies can see. And the replay is going to be available also tomorrow as well for those of you who missed these live. And Emma, I'm thanking for catching this. Yes, awesome. I'm really happy to see you here. And yeah, let's have a great rest of the week, ladies. And thank you so much for showing up to this call. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.